Hidden Skywalker Heir. The whole movie hinges on one Force-sensitive boy nobody's supposed to recognize, and fans are convinced his bloodline is the real secret Lucasfilm is hiding. Here's what the leaks actually give us. According to the leaker known as Fives Walker, who has a track record of accurate Star Wars plot reveals, the nephew is played by Flynn Gray, and he's Force-sensitive. The same leak says the boy's mother, played by Amy Adams, is also Force-sensitive, and she's killed early in the film. Before she dies, she hands her son her lightsaber and tells him to find his uncle, a man he's never met. That lines up with the confirmed casting, Gray as the nephew of Ryan Gosling's character, and Adams as the mother of Gray's character. From there, the theory takes off. Because the film is set 5 years after the rise of Skywalker, fans argue that a secretly surviving Force-sensitive bloodline is the only thing that justifies this whole setup. And the wildest version, floating around since the project leaked, is that he's a hidden Skywalker or Solo heir, maybe a descendant of Ben Solo, maybe a survivor of Luke's academy. Here's the problem. Writer Jonathan Tropper has flatly stated the film has no legacy characters, and that you won't see anyone from the previous movies. As one breakdown over at Collider pointed out, in current canon, Luke has no direct descendants, and Rey couldn't possibly have an adult son just 5 years after the rise of Skywalker. So a literal hidden Skywalker heir is canon impossible. What's left is the genuinely open question. Can a brand new Force bloodline exist without counting as a legacy character? That's the tension nobody's resolved, and it's exactly why the identity of this one kid is driving the entire pre-release conversation. Mia's secret pupil. The mercenary hunting the boy might not want to kill him at all, and the leaks hint she wants to do something far more dangerous. According to Fives Walker, reported through SFF Gazette, Mia Goth plays a Force-sensitive, lightsaber-wielding mercenary, and crucially, not a Sith cultist, despite earlier rumors saying exactly that. The leak says she works for Matt Smith's Warlord, but she keeps her own independent agenda. And here's the line that set the theory crowd on fire. The leaker compared her dynamic to Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati from Ahsoka, noting plans that, quote, might involve training a certain someone. Fans read that certain someone as the Force-sensitive boy, which means Goth's real goal might not be to deliver him or kill him, but to take him and train him herself. The theory goes that she's chasing the same ambition Baylan was, building her own Force tradition that answers to neither the Jedi nor the Sith. That's the part that makes lore fans lean in, because a third path between light and dark is the exact gray territory the franchise has been circling for years. If it's true, the antagonist isn't just a hired blade with a lightsaber. She's an ideological rival fighting over what the boy will become, and that's a much more interesting reason to chase a child across the galaxy than a simple bounty. Delivered to Rey. For months, the loudest theory said the entire plot was a setup to hand the boy to Rey Skywalker, right up until the writer torched it. The original leak chain suggested Gosling's character is transporting his nephew to Rey for Jedi training, which would position Starfighter as an on-ramp to the long-planned Rey-led New Jedi Order film. That idea got rocket fuel from the insider known as My Time to Shine Hello, who claimed Lucasfilm intends Starfighter to launch its own trilogy, and that there's a big cameo to set up the sequel. Everyone assumed the cameo was Rey. Then Jonathan Tropper said, quote, I think it's known that we have no legacy characters. You're not going to see any of the characters you've seen in the other movies. The Rey cameo was officially debunked, and Tropper ruled out secret cameos entirely. It doesn't help the theory that Daisy Ridley's separate Rey project is set roughly 15 years after the rise of Skywalker, a completely different point on the timeline than this film's 5-year gap. So this is the theory that might have been true, all the way up until the writer killed it. The leak was reasonable, the logic held together, and the evidence simply landed against it. It's a clean example of how a plausible rumor can dominate the discourse and still turn out wrong. The Jedi Question. Everyone assumed Ryan Gosling was the next great Jedi, but multiple leaks insist his hero never picks up the title at all. The reporting from Geek Tyrant and several other outlets describes Gosling as a washed-up pilot and war hero, haunted by his past, who's found by the boy in a cantina. And here's where the sources start to disagree. One early framing called Gosling's character Force-sensitive, while multiple later reports state plainly that he is not a Jedi, that he's simply a man protecting a Force-sensitive boy. The official synopsis only calls him a solitary pilot, entangled in a mission as new threats emerge, on a journey that may alter the future of the Force itself. That vagueness is the theory's oxygen. Fans argue that a war hero haunted by his past is just code for a fallen or lapsed Force user hiding what he can do, and that the Cantina recluse archetype is a deliberate echo of a Jedi in hiding. Whether he's secretly Force-sensitive is genuinely unresolved, because the leaks themselves can't agree, and that disagreement is exactly what makes this one a theory that might actually be true. By the way, if you're enjoying this so far, I post videos like this all the time, and a subscribe would really help out. Thanks. The next great villain. Matt Smith's Warlord is being teased as the franchise's next major antagonist, and the leaks suggest he's something the saga has never really centered before. According to the leak, Smith plays a warlord and arms dealer, infamous across the galaxy, who employs Goth's mercenary. Multiple outlets have reported the framing that he's being positioned as the next great villain in Star Wars. That's a big claim, and fans have run with it. The theory goes that a galaxy-spanning arms dealer thriving 5 years after the Empire's final collapse implies a power vacuum the New Republic just can't control. From there, theorists tie him to Imperial remnant warlordism, the fractured ex-Imperial fiefdoms that rose up in the chaos after Palpatine's defeats. And because he commands a Force-sensitive mercenary, some argue he's effectively collecting Force users as weapons, a man with no powers of his own who weaponizes the Force through the people he hires. What he is not, at least according to the leaks, is a Sith. That cultist angle was tied to Goth's character and explicitly denied. And that's what makes him interesting. A non-Force-using crime lord as the headline villain would be a real structural shift for a franchise that has leaned almost entirely on Sith and Imperial brass. If the theory holds, Smith's Warlord represents the lawless aftermath of the saga's wars, which gives a small, standalone film a surprising amount of thematic weight. New threats emerge. The official synopsis promises new threats, and the fan debate over what fills the post-Empire power vacuum is where the wildest theories live. The exact wording is worth quoting, because every theory hangs on it. In a rebuilding galaxy, a solitary pilot becomes entangled in a crucial mission as new threats emerge. The film is set 5 years after the rise of Skywalker, which makes it the furthest into the future the saga has ever gone on screen. That's a blank slate, and fans have filled it. With the Sith and the First Order gone, the theory goes that these new threats have to be a brand new faction, an Imperial remnant clawing back territory, or a rising dark-side tradition nobody's named yet. Others connect the rebuilding galaxy line to a weak New Republic that simply can't police warlords like the one Smith is playing. And some read new threats as a setup for a larger trilogy-spanning antagonist, which loops right back to that unconfirmed trilogy rumor. Nothing here is confirmed, the synopsis is deliberately vague. But because this is the first canon story set this far past the Skywalker saga, whatever these new threats turn out to be could end up defining the next era of Star Wars. That blank slate is exactly why the speculation runs so hot. The Cade Skywalker theory. One look at Gosling's scruffy pilot sent fans straight to a Legends scoundrel, and the theory is so clean it almost works, right up until the timeline breaks it. The claim is that Gosling is secretly playing Cade Skywalker, the Legends-era bounty hunter and Force user. The evidence fans cite is genuinely tempting. Gosling's look resembles Cade, and Cade's profile maps neatly onto the leaks. A survivor of a Jedi purge living off the grid, suppressing his own Force sensitivity, working as a bounty hunter. The trouble is the math. In Legends, Cade Skywalker is a direct descendant of Luke, set more than a century after the original trilogy in the Star Wars Legacy comics. As Collider laid out, current canon gives Luke no direct descendants, and Starfighter takes place just 5 years after the rise of Skywalker, far too soon for any Cade equivalent to exist. Bringing him in would also smash straight into Tropper's no legacy characters statement, so the literal version is dead on arrival. What survives is a softer reading, that the film borrows Cade's vibe and his arc, the haunted recluse hiding his powers, without ever using the name. It's the prototypical theory that might actually be true, plausible on vibes, impossible on the timeline, and that contradiction is exactly why it's dominated the forums. The Mara Jade theory. If Gosling is the new Cade, fans already had a Legends partner picked out for Amy Adams, and the math gets messy fast. The theory says Adams is secretly playing Mara Jade, the Legends character, a former Imperial assassin who eventually becomes Luke Skywalker's wife. Fans point to the fact that Adams plays a Force-sensitive mother with a lightsaber, loosely echoing Mara's profile as the Emperor's hand and a deadly Force user. But as Collider noted, actually incorporating Mara's history would retcon the entire sequel trilogy and, quote, make $3 billion movies essentially worthless. And like every Legends theory here, it runs straight into Tropper's no legacy characters rule. It's a short, sharp companion to the Cade idea, and together they show how fans pattern match Legends lore onto every new cast announcement, even when canon makes it flatly impossible. The scrapped third act. The director admitted he tore up the ending and rebuilt it mid-shoot, and fans are convinced the original draft hid the film's biggest secret. Speaking on the On Film with Kevin McCarthy podcast, Sean Levy said, quote, "We had a whole different idea for something in the third act, and then things didn't align, and I was forced to come up with a new idea, and I'm literally right now shooting that section of the movie." He added that he's grateful the original approach didn't work, because the replacement turned out better. To theorists, that line, "things didn't align," reads like a scrapped cameo or a connection to another project that fell through. The most popular guess ties it straight to the debunked Rey appearance, the idea being that Rey was in the original third act before the no legacy characters mandate killed her off. Others think the change was a villain reveal or a sequel hook that got cut to keep the film standalone. A confirmed, on-the-record rewrite is exactly the kind of breadcrumb that powers "what did they cut" theories, and this one stays grounded in a real quote. Pierre's secret role. Aaron Pierre joined the cast talking up the scale of it all, and then said nothing about who he actually plays, so fans filled the silence. Pierre is confirmed to be in the film, and he's spoken publicly about how much the project means to him, but his role is being kept entirely under wraps. The reporting notes it isn't even clear whether he appears on screen or voices a role. That kind of secrecy is catnip. The theory goes that Pierre is hiding a major character, maybe a second villain, maybe a key ally, maybe a motion capture or voice performance for some non-human character. And some read the tight lid as evidence of a twist reveal connected to that reworked third act. Nothing about the role is confirmed, but casting secrecy this strict around a named actor almost always signals a deliberate reveal, which is why the guessing is reasonable, even with zero hard details. A Stealth Trilogy. Lucasfilm keeps calling it standalone, but the loudest insiders swear Starfighter is secretly the first chapter of a new trilogy. Officially, the studio describes the film as an all-new standalone adventure, and says the project was intended to be standalone and not to launch any sequels. The insider known as My Time to Shine Hello tells a different story, claiming, quote, "Lucasfilm's plan is for Starfighter to be the start of its own trilogy, and there is a big cameo to set that sequel. That big cameo was widely read as Rey, which Tropper's no legacy characters statement promptly debunked. But even setting the cameo aside, theorists argue the boy's training arc is just too open-ended to be a one-off, that a story about a kid learning the Force practically demands a sequel. There's no official confirmation of trilogy plans. The studio's only public framing is standalone, so the standalone versus trilogy question stays genuinely open, and the boy's unfinished arc gives the trilogy theory real plausibility despite the official line. The Inherited Lightsaber. The dying mother hands her son a lightsaber and a name, and fans are already trying to figure out whose blade it really is. The leak says Adams's Force-sensitive mother is killed early and gives her son her lightsaber, telling him to go find his uncle. That single prop has become a lore puzzle. Theorists obsess over the saber's origin, guessing it belonged to a known Jedi, or was built in a specific tradition, or carries some hidden significance in its kyber crystal. And because it's a mother's blade passed down to a son, some read it as a deliberate inversion of the saga's whole father-to-son lightsaber lineage. There's no canon owner established, and Tropper's no legacy characters rule makes a famous prior owner pretty unlikely. But the matrilineal handoff is a subtle break from Star Wars tradition that fans have rightly clocked, and it's the kind of detail that turns one prop into an entire thread of speculation. Altering the Force. The official synopsis ends on a line fans can't stop dissecting, a promise that this small story might change the Force itself forever. The exact wording is that the pilot's journey may alter the future of the Force itself. Tropper has only deepened the mystery, saying that lightsabers are a part of that galaxy, and that certain Star Wars hallmarks remain, but, quote, "more than that, I can't say." He and Levy have been clear they set out to tell a completely new story, one not bound by the structures of the past movies. So fans took that synopsis line and ran straight to the biggest possible reading. With the Jedi and the Sith both effectively gone after the rise of Skywalker, the theory goes that this film introduces a new Force tradition entirely, a gray or balanced order, embodied by the boy at its center. The goth leak about training a certain someone feeds the same idea, that the kid is the seed of a brand new Force philosophy, neither Jedi nor Sith. And the most ambitious version reads, "Alter the future of the Force literally, as a metaphysical shift, a new understanding that replaces the old light and dark binary for good." None of it's confirmed. The synopsis line is deliberately vague marketing, but that's what makes it the theory with the highest stakes of all. Because it isn't about who one character is, it's about whether the entire mythology of the Force is about to change. If you found this worth your time, consider subscribing so you don't miss any future uploads. Thanks for watching.